Depression Baby. Stories about growing up in Appalachia and other things too. With my dad, Ray B. Rogers.
On August 16th, 1929, I came into this world kicking and screaming. I reckon that made me a Depression Baby.
Depression Baby is a World Songs media production. Brought to you by Depression Baby the Book, available in Kindle, paperback, and hardcover, and soon audiobook at raybrogers.com. Today, Ray tells about a very special condiment used in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Sorghum Lasses. This was a tasty treat enjoyed at breakfast by pioneer families to make complete a meal of country ham and grits, and maybe even red-eye gravy. Sorghum syrup was definitely a part of our mountain culture and heritage. Children and some adults would stir butter into the syrup to make a smooth blend before applying the sorghum to the biscuit. Mothers would use sorghum to make gingerbread men, and its delicate flavor would make a contribution to the applesauce layer cake, or stack cake, loved by many mountaineers. This was the wedding cake of choice in colonial times, as well as the wedding cake of choice of my niece, Sharon Hyatt Wade. This was the only wedding cake that I've ever really enjoyed. Sorghum syrup is not the same as molasses syrup, although sorghum syrup is sometimes called sorghum molasses. Sorghum is made from sorghum cane, and molasses is manufactured from sugar cane. They are very different products, with molasses being darker in color with a much stronger flavor. They are both used as a sweetener in cooking, and molasses is also used in the manufacturing of rum. Personally, I would never contaminate my biscuit with blackstrap molasses syrup. The flavor is much too strong. Sorghum cane can be raised much farther north than sugar cane, and government statistics indicate that 20 million gallons of sorghum syrup were made in 1888. Just think how many biscuits it would take to sop up that much sorghum syrup. A bit of trivia here. There are two types of sorghum cane. One grows short and produces large seed heads and is used as a cattle feed. It will grow in climates that are too hot and dry to successfully grow corn, and probably came to America via Africa. The sorghum cane used for syrup grows up to 6 feet tall and has a small grain head, and probably traveled to our mountains through Europe. Since most farmers only raised enough sorghum cane for their own use, it was not practical to own a mill. Usually, there was at least one farmer in each community who had a mill for grinding the cane to produce the green-colored juice that was cooked into sorghum syrup. The juice was cooked in a large copper pan about 3.5 feet wide and about 8 feet long and about 8 inches deep, with a wood fire underneath. The cane stalks had to be stripped of the leaves and the grain tops cut off before grinding. The mill had a long pole across the top, with a mule or horse harnessed at the other end. The animal would walk in a circle around the mill, which would squeeze out the juice, leaving a pile of spent stalks called slag. While the juice was cooking, someone had to continually skim off the sticky foam. If the juice was not cooked enough, the syrup would ferment and go bad. If the juice was cooked too much, the syrup would be too thick and turn to sugar. So you can understand it was an art known only to a select few who know the precise time to drain the pans and to have sorghum syrup cooked to perfection. While all of this was going on, someone would peel pieces of the cane stalks to give to the children, who would chew the cane pieces to extract the sweet juices. Making sorghum lasses was an annual event. Actually, it was more of a celebration where families got together each fall to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Although it was a lot of work harvesting the cane and cutting the wood to fire up the cooking pans, this was a happy time, but it mostly is a time long gone. However, there are still a few of us who still manage to find some sorghum molasses with some real butter and maybe even some biscuits made from scratch. A few of us who still know how to savor the best of our past, the best of our mountain heritage.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Depression Baby. And if you did, my dad has one important request. If this podcast brought a little smile to your day, would you please consider right now subscribing for free to the podcast and kindly leaving a nice 5-star rating and review on iTunes. You can make the difference in getting Depression Baby in front of a wider audience and help preserve this disappearing legacy. If you need any help with how to subscribe to the podcast, just go to raybrogers.com and look for the podcast tab on the main menu. Thanks to our audio and musical contributors, including our friend Lobo Loco. You can find out more about him and all the rest of the music and audio in the show notes at, you guessed it, raybrogers.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Depression Baby Podcast.